Welcome. These will be my thoughts on The Patient, Season 1, Episode 3, Issues. The episode is rated TVMA, so will this video be? There will be spoilers for the episode and the ones leading up to it, all of which I love. Let's dive right in. So I thought this episode did a good job of, sort of the overall, just getting us a little further. So yeah, the person that was upstairs turned out to be Candace, Sam's mom, and while she's not going to call the police or get him free, although she says she doesn't have a key. That's not the same as saying she wouldn't do it if she did have one, but you know, it does still, the let's see, what's it called again? Family therapy, I think, is the term when it's multiple members of the same family. Certainly would make sense. And let's see, the ending was also a good. The holy shit. So that's got to be the guy from the restaurant, I figure. Or I guess it's not impossible. It's someone else. Maybe this guy cut him off in traffic or something. But, yeah. And it's one of those things where, technically, Sam didn't kill the guy, but kidnapping is one step towards that, like a pretty significant one. So it's a good way to escalate whilst still keeping, so far the core conflict is whether or not he'll be able to keep Sam from killing this guy, and also get free, obviously. But that was, essentially so far it seems like if Sam is going to let Alan go, it will require Alan compelling him not to kill the guy. Yeah, I think that's it for the overarching stuff. So, scene by scene, I quite liked the way they handled Candace, because it's one of those things, like, you don't really want to go, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre family with it. I've only seen clips, but, you get the sense that, okay, these are, yeah, some of these family members are really disturbed. And essentially, like Candace, it's that thing of, like, sometimes parents will perhaps not excuse the things their offspring are doing, but, like, they'll be willing to go very far to, for the family members. So basically that's what she's doing. And yeah, that again, this is already, the core concept of this miniseries is pretty out there. This adds to that without taking it into just like hypothetically, let's say it was a space alien that walked down the stairs. I'd be like, I don't think this is gonna work well. And I think, yeah, the thing about, no, his parents are not dead. And yeah, I think that pretty well covers the first scene. So yeah, Sam comes back and is still, like, oh, you got to try this. This is amazing food. I do really love the way that he will just, like, act as though, I mean, the way he'll come home from work and bring in food and be like, oh, you got to try this. This is just the best. What was it like? Have you had this before? And he's like, yeah, not like this. You haven't. It's just like Alan's a willing house guest rather than a kidnappee. And yeah, he talks to him about, well, I met Candace. And yeah, Sam is like, listen, I didn't want to tell you about her because I know therapy's all like mothers, mothers, mothers. My mother is not the problem. And Alan's like, Sam, that's not how this works. I'm not here to determine who's the problem, while he makes a mental note. Mom equals problem. And yeah, I do appreciate, because that is the stereotype, there's plenty of therapists who won't try to make it all about that. It's one of those things. Sometimes the reason that people will come out of therapy and it's like, wow, I feel like we talked. The patient and the therapist sure talked a lot about the patient's mother. Yeah, because a lot of the time, and okay, shit. How do I'm not saying that women are inherently bad parents. That is absolutely not what I'm saying. I'm saying there are a number of people who do have issues with their mom, and some of the time it is because the mom is saying or doing something wrong. But I am absolutely not saying that all women are bad parents, nor that it's never the mother's fault, because I do appreciate there are some, I really don't want to feed into this bullshit myth of, shit, I forget what they call themselves, but there is like yeah, there are people on the internet who will make a huge deal out of how, oh, my kid doesn't want to, my kid went no contact with me. I am a victim here. And then, you actually look at the things that they've said or done, and it's really clear why their kid does not want contact. Savvy Writes Books did a review of one of the books by, a woman who had, yeah, and she went over some of the issues. So I will direct you to, I'm afraid I don't remember what it's called, but yeah, something, with mom or mother or something in the title, yeah. But yeah, it's one of those things. If you've never been in therapy, you might think, ah, if I went to therapy, all we're gonna talk about is my mom. And yeah, let's see. I think is that when he, yeah, I think that the Alan imagines trying to, yeah, smash open the bowl and get stabby with I appreciate the way that they will, because it's one of those things, like, obviously he's thinking about this, but it's also like, would it really work, kind of thing. It's one thing to picture it in your head. He was starting to see pictures, wasn't he? And let's see, we have the yeah, ultimately he does accept, it could be a way to help him. Yeah, I think was that when? Okay, I'll take it here. The At one point in the episode, he brings up, you have to let the chain off. It's that way this could be off the chain hook. But he insists, well, that's not how I pictured it. And Alan points out, I sit, you know, yeah, I sit all day. You're a young, fit guy. What do you think would even happen? Do you really think I could? And I really appreciate the way that Alan is making sure to, like, what he, like, we know that he's like thinking about, could I take him? But when he raises that, it does, like, yeah, it sound, we hear that, and it does sound credible. He's like, he's thinking about what would have a chance to work to convince him. He's thinking, he's using he's applying his knowledge of psychology, of human psychology, to the situation. It's that thing of, well, the fact that he put a chain on me, the fact that the chain stays on when he's in here. Like, it's one thing that the chain is on. Obviously don't chain up people, unless it's a kink that you're, I'm not here to kink shame. But hypothetically, the chain is there so that Alan is unable to escape. So why would it be on when they're just talking? Presumably, Sam is concerned. And yeah, to try to alleviate the concern by pointing out, well, I mean, do you really think I could take you? I appreciated how clever that was. And yeah, the family therapy, I thought they did a really great job. The way that Candace will say a few words and then Sam will interrupt. And Alan has to say, everybody gets to say what they, their piece here. Sometimes when you let people finish a sentence, they'll say something you didn't expect. And that's, again, he's really understanding because what's going on, because yeah, Sam doesn't want to hear, because he thinks he knows what she's going to say, and he doesn't want to hear those words spoken out loud by her. And yeah, it is. I think there's a specific word for it that or term. I forget, but some people who have, like, some kind of anxiety or such, take steps like that. So if it's that they don't want to hear at least a specific person say at least a specific thing, they'll interrupt. Um, if yeah, depending on your anxiety, it'll be based on that specific thing. And right, also the thing about, yeah, I'll do it now while I remember. The thing about, did he hurt you in this room? If I was in this room, he hurt me in this room, and yeah, like, that's obviously also part of it. And that further makes the therapy strained, because every second he's sitting there thinking, it was in this room. So they're doing a really good job of, like, there's a sort of balance. What are the things that suggest that this could work? So we, for example, have the fact that he was able to hold off on the restaurant guy. He still hasn't killed him, and before this episode, he hadn't even kidnapped him. Gold star. He might win the Nobel Peace Prize, honestly. I try not to be petty. I don't want to be a petty person. I think it was Mehdi Hassan who pointed out. So not only did Trump not get the Nobel Peace Prize, but it was given to a Venezuelan at a time when Trump is like destroying Venezuelan boats. Hmm. 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 Interesting. But yeah, that's one thing that speaks in favor of maybe the therapy will work. But then on the other hand, you have the lies, you have that it's taking place, have the whole kidnapping Alan thing, you have the fact that it's taking place in a room where his father hurt him when clearly his father hurting him was how this all started. So yeah, I think they're doing a really good job so far with that balance. Keeping it, I mean, how do I phrase this? Making sure that the balance, it feels like it could tip in either direction by the end of the show, but also making it feel like, okay, it's not just, it hasn't already tipped 100% in favor. Like hypothetically, let's say that there was no kidnapping. Let's say that somehow Sam managed to have this breakthrough with Alan to get to the, let's see, yeah, he got to the point where he tells him about the serial killing. He tells him about, the guy that the restaurant guy, and like Alan agrees, not to call the cops, and they agree to do the daily therapy. Like, other than the fact that it would be a very different show, it wouldn't have the attention grabbing concept elevator pitch. Yeah, I would feel like, okay, it's probably gonna work then, right? Like, it's, but here we have this more, yeah. So I think they're doing a good job with that. I feel like there was something else I really wanted to say, but I don't think it was that scene. Okay, so yeah, god damn it. They're doing such a good job with this, like, accurate writing. There's the thing about, he would tell me to do something, and if I didn't do it within a second, he would hit me. And sometimes I didn't even understand what he was asking for. That's sadly, yeah. There are a number of parents who, yeah. And I forget, I may have already said in my video on episode 1 or 2, but I'm not saying it's true for all. I don't know enough to make that declarative statement, but for some people who abuse, in some cases of domestic abuse, they are just looking for an excuse. They just have some frustration and they're taking it out on the other person. It's not that they think, I hypothetically, maybe there are people out there who think that hitting their child is part of raising them. Certainly, I accept that in the past, that was something people believed. And I can imagine there are still people who believe, even though we know, it just causes trauma. But there are a number of people who don't believe that, but claim that they do so that they can get away with physical abuse of their own flesh and blood. Now, yes, family therapy. I like the thing about, you magnificent doctor. I read your book. I really loved it. Then I gave it to Sam. Sorry, that was my B. And then later she's like, I learned that from a therapy book, not yours. But yeah. the refuge. And yeah, like it genuinely is an interesting idea. The thing of, what if the way you protect your mother is by refusing to give in to the urge? Can you try that? That is a clever, yeah, because yeah, that again, hypothetically, we don't know yet that it won't work. It just, I mean, maybe that's why it was so far. Maybe, well, I guess, did he always kidnap before he killed, or did he kill them on the spot? I forget. That might have been said, but yeah. Um, I don't know. I feel like there might still be a chance. Um, I certainly don't think that the show is going to resolve already this issue now. Yeah, I suppose that does just leave the flashbacks. I am not sure I understand. I guess I'll briefly note. It was definitely like so sad seeing her sick in bed, and we're hearing her sing. So it's is an effective contrast of her very alive and then her very nearly not alive anymore. And I'm not sure exactly what to make of the rest of the flashback. Because, like, let's see, this is her son's wedding, and we know that she's not super happy about his choice of partner. So maybe it is in part protest. I was half expecting her to bust out one of Weird Al's. She was gonna reword one more minute to be about her son instead of the singer. But the lyrics were not translated. I watched it with English subtitles, so I don't know. But it didn't sound like it sounded like a it didn't sound like she was like verbally tearing apart the couple, roasting them or something. Um, I guess that makes sense. That's really more of a best in man thing, I feel like. But literally the one line I remember, I know I watched Mad About You. I don't know how much of it, but literally the only joke I remember is, "You're really going to show up to a wedding without pants? That'll show them who the best man is." I think I liked it. I like both actors. Uh, anyway. But yeah, I mean, is it in part protest? Because like the rabbi specifically says, we don't allow women to sing. Which I know there are some Orthodox that have that, and several people walk out. And she continues playing and singing. I mean, yeah, I'm not 100% sure if we're meant to be on her side or the son or rabbi's side or what exactly. I do love the look on the rabbi's face. She's just, it's my son's wedding. I only have the one. And so he doesn't stop her, but you can also tell from his face he's like, I really thought that would work. People usually do what I tell them. Jesus Christ. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's not supposed to be so clear cut. Maybe we're not supposed to take a side about the scene. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It's possible it'll that in an upcoming episode I'll have more of an idea. Or maybe yeah. I think that is everything I had to say about this episode. Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, she's sitting, she's there, she's playing the guitar, she's singing, people are walking out. She can tell that that's because of her. Like, I feel quite confident in asserting she's not up there thinking, must have been something they ate.